I am my own worst enemy sometimes. We are now down to 0 working trucks, getting mad over and over and over. Still not enjoying this. I don't know how smoothly this is gonna go. Here we go, hope for the best. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. Today begins the undertaking of removing the turbocharger, which is an upgraded turbo that we wanna be taking with us to the new truck, which has got the crappy Dodge turbo in it that's prone to failure. And ours is an upgraded ATS Aurora 4000 stage 2 turbo. Is getting started on pulling this turbo out. And in order to do that, we have to yank out a whole bunch of other things that are, as you can imagine, in the way of the turbo. So, starting to get my tools out. Got this hood popped here. The first few things that gotta come out are the SMB intake, which I'll be taking with me over to the other truck. And then I gotta move a whole bunch of coolant lines that are in the way. Really, it shouldn't be too bad getting access to getting this turbo out. I am scared of the bolts for the turbo. I mean, this turbo's only got 30,000 miles on it, so it shouldn't be too terrible, I hope. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared of this project. That's why I've been procrastinating on getting started on it, because I am just intimidated. It's hot out here. It's time to break out the dad bod. All right. The right thing to do too is going to be to take this air filter out. I got the washable type from SMB, and I just use some Simple Green typically. These are gonna be, I'm sure, very flattering angles. Very flattering angles. Okay, so we'll keep that close by. All things considered, not bad for 10,000 miles and going to Baja and back. Oh, these bugs are gonna be the death of me. All right, one sensor off of the SMB. So way down there is the hose clamp that connects the SMB intake to the turbo. And then we've also got our output from the intake side of the turbocharger going into the intercooler. Both of those bad boys got to come off. One piece. Oh, all right, this probably looks ridiculous, but just trying to keep those flies off my back. Got this bad boy off. It wasn't actually bolted in there. This wire was just kind of wrapped around something. One of the many uses of a moonshade, creating shade for yourself while you're working on your own vehicle, is to get the coolant out of the radiator, because coolant apparently goes through the turbo, and also that'll drain some of the coolant out of the block. And then otherwise just trying to gain some more access to the turbo. The largest amount of prerequisites that I've done for this job is watch a YouTube video, and I didn't even finish the YouTube video, just watched part of it. And then figured I'll watch the rest once I get to the point of actually achieving something. Just gonna pick away at getting this alternator off of here and out of here while getting eaten alive by flies and mosquitoes. Idaho is good training for Alaska if you want to learn how to tolerate bugs. Son of a bitch, what a stupid positioning. Still not enjoying this. Truck. We are now on to pulling the turbo out of the new truck. You can see my little setup here. I've got the moonshade going, tarp underneath, moving blanket so that I don't beat myself up too much. And the goal is turbo out today. So let's get going, because otherwise we're not gonna have enough time. All right, so we are midway through pulling this turbo, I would call it. Let's take a look at what we've done here. We have disconnected the intercooler tube, removed the intake, separated a ton of hoses, removed a bunch of wiring harnesses, removed a couple of heat shields. That's about it. Quick check in here. We are now under the new to us truck, and I am working on taking out the handful of items that are on the underside of the vehicle. Need to take out a bolt for a banjo fitting for coolant line, and then gotta take out two 10mm bolts that are for the return for the oil from the turbo back to the oil pan. And then I gotta loosen up this exhaust, and that way I can get a ratchet strap on here and ratchet strap this downpipe away from the turbo that's up top. The most important thing that I'm doing right now is making sure to tan my thighs. If I'm working half under the truck, half out of the truck, gonna get some color on these chicken legs here. Last thing I gotta do is get that V-band clamp off of the back of the turbo. It's loose. I just think I need to loosen it up more and then slide that down. And then we gotta take the nut off of the back of this exhaust hanger so that it's free and loose, and then we'll be good to go. So the key for getting this exhaust to separate from the turbo and stay out of your way is a ratchet strap. You got it hooked on there, and it's running down the side of the truck. And that way when I go to pull my turbo out, I'll have some room to move it down and backwards and stuff like that to get her out. I cannot explain to you what a victory this is. Closing in on 8 hours. Couple of breaks in there for sure, but I don't know how supposedly people do this in 8 hours in and out. So these are our two turbos. They don't look drastically different at first glance. The compressor wheel inside of the ATS turbo is definitely different, has more blades than the stock turbo. So that's kind of like repitching an airplane propeller or a boat propeller. You're gonna change the volume of air and the amount of air that that one can pull by having more blades rather than less blades like that one. And then there's other fancy stuff in there that I don't really remember, but they're out. So that's exciting. Tomorrow I have to go pick up a stud kit from the post office, which means a one-wheel ride in order to get there because we are now down to 0 working trucks. And then really the focus is gonna be on putting this turbo into the old truck. We are coming up on our 14 days worth of time here on the land that we're on. So we gotta be out of here by Saturday night. It's Wednesday night now. I'm taking this elbow because it's newer. It's got a lot less rust, less crust. It's time to put the turbo from the 5500, wherever it is over there, into the 3500. You're supposed to jack up one side of the motor, loosening up the motor mount from the frame, which I've done. It doesn't really seem to separate at all. So I'm gonna try and just stuff this turbo in there. One guy I saw on YouTube University, he just did it without even moving the motor mount at all. He just wiggled the pry bar until he got the turbo in there. He also said by the time he was done with it that he was pretty pissed off. So it's gonna be a day of anger and aggression at some point. Good part is this time gravity is helping us put the turbo back. So So overall, drastically more smooth getting that turbo in than I thought it would go. Obviously it's not all bolted up, but first thing we ran into that is going to be something we got to rearrange is the downpipe for the exhaust system. So I'm going to go under there and try and push that around, use a strap to hold it back and out of the way. See if we can plop this turbo in here faster than I thought we would. Celebratory drinking time because I finally got through the most challenging part of this truck project. It's been a day and a half since I picked up the camera, mostly out of frustration because I have lost a day and a half to getting the coolant hose on the bottom of this turbo and the oil return line on the bottom of this turbo. They've been miserable. I don't know if this is gonna show up on the camera, but this is my arm. Cuts, cuts, cuts. This is oil. I don't know if it's totally necessary when you're swapping two used turbos from truck to truck, like what I'm doing here. But if you're doing a brand new turbo replacement, you definitely need to be doing this. So just to showcase what the move is, you have your oil in your shot glass. No, we're not doing shots just yet. Then you take the eyedropper that comes with your turbo gasket kit, suck some out of your solo cup, and then we're gonna drop it down into the turbo. So right down into the oil fill hole. Well, I went too fast. Now I spilled. That's probably because it's got oil in it. Yeah. So we've learned that's probably not necessary with a used turbo and is probably only applicable to replacing a turbo with a new one. I'd much rather be safe than sorry in terms of making sure there's oil in that turbo before we go to fire it up. There's definitely an order of operations to everything in terms of hoses. Put the oil line on one way, doesn't work. Got to rotate it around and make it work with the coolant line. Beepity boppity boop. A lot of it is stuff that will be beneficial when I go to do the 5500 because I've now experienced which order you got to put this stuff together in, which order you got to put that stuff together in. If you're going to need a person's help in order to get the coolant clamp on the bottom. Things that would have made this go way faster if you were an actual diesel mechanic and not a boat mechanic who's just decided he's going to play with diesel trucks. All right, while we're here, start hooking up some wires. Okay. All right, I got it all filled up with coolant. I still have the intake off, the air filter and stuff like that. I want to be able to check for some leaks from the turbo, both at the coolant side and at the oil side, before putting everything all back together to where I can't really see anything. Let's do a startup. First thing I'm going to want to do after I start this thing is start checking for leaks. Here we go. Hope for the best. So let's check underneath this loud thing. I don't see any leaks so far. All right, so I'll stand further away from the big loud truck. I'm going to continue to let this thing run for a little while. I need to burp some more coolant through it, and then we'll put together the last few pieces of the puzzle. And we're gonna start on this thing. All right, well, other than potential leaks that we could experience while driving this thing around, which we're gonna do today, this truck's done. not bleeding yet. So my struggle is getting this big heavy turbo up into that exhaust flange. Although you'd think it would be easy. Oh yes, just be stronger. Just be stronger. You could just pull it up there. Wrong. Very hard. I've got a pry bar wedged underneath. And then under the truck, here's what we got going on. Sketchy level is pretty low, even though it's gonna look sketch. 6x6, 6x6. I've got a 12-ton bottle jack here and a broken 4x6 on top of it. And that's pushing up into the turbo and the downpipe, largely the downpipe, but I can move them kind of as a unit. All right, let's go check our progress up top, see how that turbo's doing. It looks like it's pretty slow progress, but it's progress. Oh, is it wedging in there? I don't know if I like that. Okay, so when I didn't have the camera on because I didn't think I was gonna get it, I got it. Got that turbo started up in there, 2 nuts on. Now I just gotta keep working and put everything back together in here. Get those engine nuts on there, get some banjo bolts on, oil line. Maybe we'll get this thing running today. Last piece of the puzzle, finally. Oh, I took the battery out, made more space. Now we're putting the battery back in, and then we're gonna start this thing up if we don't get eaten by bugs and die. Okay, it's very late. I am super dirty, tired. This thing's had a couple of leaks prior to even starting it. Let's see what happens when we start it. So far, everything seems okay. No immediate leaks, no terrible noises. I'm gonna do a further inspection. A little bit of a coolant drip, but that's probably from me spilling a little bit when I was filling up the cooling system. So we'll keep an eye on that and make sure it doesn't get worse, or make sure it at least goes away. So far, so good. So I finished up the turbo project in the nick of time. Just barely made it off of the land we were on in the 14 days that it was required. We've now put 6,000 miles on the truck since that time. We are here in New Jersey at our home. The one thing I still think I got going on is a boost leak, actually. I'm not making the same amount of boost that I once was. At some point in the future, I'll dive into what the heck is going on, where my extra 5 or so pounds of boost's at, but otherwise no leaks, good power, and it runs great. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and definitely be sure to like this video for me. Share it with somebody who wants a truck camper, knows about truck campers, loves truck campers. Bye.